Under intense scrutiny and growing urgency, Lewis Hamilton's debut season with Ferrari now faces its most decisive weekend yet. The 7-time world champion, who joined the Scuderia with high hopes of ending their championship drought, has instead found himself battling midfield mediocrity with a car that simply refuses to behave. The SF-25 has been plagued with instability, unpredictable grip, and poor tire management, all of which have left Hamilton frustrated and the Ferrari pit wall scrambling for answers. Imola now represents more than just another race on the calendar. It's a breaking point. This is where the promises made in winter testing must meet real-world performance, or the narrative around Hamilton's move to Maranello risks shifting from bold ambition to tragic miscalculation. Inside the Ferrari headquarters at Maranello, the engineering team has been operating at maximum capacity, poring over mountains of data to diagnose the SF-25's core issues. Every sector time, every stint analysis, and every onboard frame has been dissected to understand why the car behaves one way in simulation and a completely different way on track. The recurring issues have become impossible to ignore: instability under braking, inconsistent aerodynamic balance, and tire degradation that ruins race pace. The pressure hasn't just come from Hamilton's feedback, it's been a chorus of concern echoed throughout the team. With the spotlight intensifying, Ferrari's tech department has pinned its hopes on a new upgrade package, one that must not only work, but work fast. This latest upgrade for Imola isn't a typical development step. It's a targeted strike against the very problems that have tormented Hamilton since the season opener. Central to the changes is a reworked floor designed to rebalance airflow. Beneath the chassis, revised rear suspension geometry to enhance traction out of slow corners, and refined cooling solutions intended to prevent rear tire overheating. One of the SF-25's most glaring weaknesses. These aren't speculative tweaks. They're purpose-built responses crafted from Hamilton's telemetry, post-race debriefs, and on-track struggles. The goal is simple: transform a car that fights the driver into one that flows with him, and finally give Hamilton the predictability and feedback he's been demanding all year. The wake-up call that accelerated these changes came in Miami, where Hamilton's qualifying deficit to Max Verstappen in Sector 1 was over 3/10, not due to a lack of skill, but because the SF-25 behaved like a nervous wreck. Under braking, it twitched unpredictably. Through the corner, it failed to rotate smoothly. On exit, it snapped without warning. In Sector 2, thermal degradation turned the rear tires into liabilities, costing him as much as 0.8 per lap to rivals like Oscar Piastri. This wasn't a case of fine margins, it was a glaring red flag. Ferrari had no choice but to prioritize immediate corrective action, pushing development resources into this Imola package in the hope of salvaging both performance and morale before the season slips too far away. Still, team principal Fred Vasseur remains cautious in his public statements, calling the Imola upgrades a small step. But sources close to the team suggest the mood inside Maranello is anything but relaxed. This isn't just about one race. It's about restoring credibility, both internally and externally. Another poor showing, especially with driver-specific changes in play, would spark serious questions about Ferrari's ability to support Hamilton's championship-level demands. It could also stir internal doubt, erode team cohesion, and damage the fragile trust Hamilton has in the project. That's why this weekend carries such immense weight. There are no excuses left, and no more time to wait for a turnaround that may never come. The calendar doesn't offer any breathing room. After Imola, the paddock heads to Monaco, a track where poor traction and rear instability are ruthlessly exposed. Then it's on to Barcelona, the ultimate proving ground for technical development and consistency. What's more, a new FIA directive on front-wing flexibility takes effect there, likely reshuffling the competitive order. Ferrari knows that if their car isn't sorted by the end of this triple header, their 2025 campaign might already be over in terms of realistic contention. So the Imola upgrade isn't just about immediate points, it's about setting the tone for the European leg of the season, where reputations are either redeemed or ruined. There's also a growing mental toll. Hamilton, for all his professionalism, has shown signs of strain. His radio messages are sharp, his body language weary, and his interviews carefully diplomatic. Those close to the team say he's walking a tightrope between optimism and regret. He needs this upgrade to work, not just for points, but for belief. Belief that this project is still worth fighting for. Imola could rekindle that spark or extinguish it. And once a driver like Hamilton starts to lose faith, it rarely returns. That's why the success of this weekend could ripple far beyond the race result. It could define whether the Hamilton-Ferrari story continues as a resurgence or stalls out entirely. Meanwhile, Ferrari faces external pressure from a fiercely competitive field. McLaren has emerged as a serious threat with consistent podium finishes, Mercedes is closing the gap with quiet determination, and Red Bull continues to be the sport's benchmark. Ferrari, by contrast, has oscillated between potential and disappointment, unable to string together convincing performances. The SF-25 must now prove itself not in isolation, but relative to teams that are evolving faster and executing better. If Imola's package doesn't bring Ferrari within striking range of its top-tier rivals, the Scuderia could soon find itself in a no-man's land, too good for the midfield, not good enough for the title fight. As the lights go out at Imola, all eyes will be fixed on Hamilton and the red car beneath him. This isn't just another chapter, it's the inflection point. Ferrari's engineers have done their part. Now it's down to the track, to the stopwatch, and to the man who believed he could bring Maranello back to glory. If the SF-25 responds, the redemption arc begins. If not, the headlines will write themselves. Hamilton came to Ferrari to chase history. What he finds this weekend may determine whether he makes it or walks away wondering what could have been.